Sunday afternoon. The early summer sunlight was as thin as a golden thread, weaving patches of light onto the porch steps. I, Thomas, Tom Hale, 64, put my cup of coffee down on the table, listening to the rare silence of a Father's Day. The alley still smelled of damp leaves after the morning watering by the neighbors. The air conditioner hummed regularly, like the breathing of the house that my husband and I have lived in for 36 years. The sound of brakes screeching in front of the gate. A brown delivery truck stopped right in the driveway. The driver, wearing a baseball cap, smiled. "Delivered Sunday. Happy Father's Day, sir." I signed on the electronic board and received a shoe-sized box, smooth on the cardboard surface, weighing less than 900 gr, so light that my hand naturally bounced. There was no sender's name, only the waybill number and the words "Sunday Priority." "Whose is it, sir?" Linda, my wife, came out of the kitchen, carrying the minty scent of the tea that was brewing. I shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe from the kids. Or Olivia?" I said that with half faith, half hope. Father's Day usually meant just a card, a phone call, a simple meal. As for a gift like this, to be honest, I was both happy and wary. We had had a rough year. Olivia's urgent calls, and Brandon's, her husband's, scoured the surface of peace like sandpaper. I set the box on the living room table. The living room smelled of waxed wood, a Persian rug bought for the 20th wedding anniversary, and lingering coffee. On the mantelpiece, a family photo frame had been left face down from some argument and hadn't been put back together. It was like a sentence without capital letters, hesitant, unfinished. "Don't open it," Linda said very softly. I raised my head. "What's wrong?" She didn't touch the box, just leaned over, squinting like a tailor checking a stitch. "Look closely at this edge. There are 12 small, evenly spaced holes. Breathing holes." I leaned closer. There were tiny dots, as if someone had used a needle to punch a circle around the mouth of the box. When I noticed, I heard a faint rustling sound, like fabric rubbing against each other from inside, then stopped. A beat later, a very light hissing sound, thin as smoke, made the back of my neck shiver. In that moment, curiosity changed. It was no longer the feeling of an old father wanting to unwrap a gift, but turned into a tense gaze, like a string looking at an object that could spring up at any moment. Linda took a step back, grabbing my sleeve. "Call 911." I dialed the number with fingers that suddenly felt unfamiliar. "There's a suspicious package. The box has breathing holes. There's noise inside. No sender." The operator kept her voice steady. "Please keep your distance. The nearest unit will arrive in 12 minutes. Do not open the box. Do not move." 12 minutes. Enough time for years to crawl back through my memory. 41 years of work, shifts, overtime, late dinners, to give Olivia the childhood I promised her the day she was born. The car I bought her at 17, the wedding Linda and I were still trying to afford. The last time transfers of $4,500 or less, then not the last time. Between the numbers, there were the small faces of Lily and Max, two grandchildren with eyes as bright as the morning. Each image passed through my mind like someone walking on wet sand leaving a mark. The doorbell rang. Officer Carter Miles, tall, stocky, eyes focused, entered with a teammate. He surveyed the room, put on his rubber gloves, lowered himself down parallel to the edge of the table, and looked closely. "You said there was a hissing sound?" I nodded. He cocked his ear, signaling us to move further back. After a short call on the radio, he said, "I'm calling animal control. We handle this kind of thing regularly. Keep your distance." Hearing the word regularly, I suddenly felt sorry. It turned out that the practice of scaring with living creatures had become regular somewhere in this city. The special vehicle arrived as quickly as the rain. Noah Park, a gentle face, silver-streaked hair, brought a neat set of tools: tongs, a hooked stick, a plastic box with ventilation holes. He bent down, moving slowly, like someone opening a secret. The razor blade cut through the tape. The box lid opened, and a red-orange patch slithered out in a smooth curve. A corn snake. Shiny skin. A pleasing pattern. "Not poisonous," Noah said, sighing. "Very pretty, but not in a box like this." I swallowed. I'd handled coils of electrical wire several times heavier than this one, but nothing had ever made my hand feel this cold. Noah gently placed the snake in a plastic safety box and closed the lid. He turned to me. "Someone paid real money for this. Sad. They should just be pets to be cared for." Officer Miles asked politely, "Do you have any idea who sent it? Was there a recent dispute?" Linda and I looked at each other. I saw last month's statement appear in midair like a page. Reptile Haven, $132.40. At that moment, I consoled myself that maybe Lily, 9, and Max, 7, wanted to buy science supplies for school. The truth sometimes is the long shadow of what we want to believe. When the house is quiet, when the snake box is gone, when Officer Miles left his card and the words, "Call if anything unusual," I suddenly saw the family photo frame face down like a sigh in the room. I walked over and gently propped it up. In the frame, 5-year-old Olivia sat on my shoulder, smiling with her front teeth showing. The sunlight in the photo was like golden dust. I placed it firmly on the shelf and pulled out my phone. The phone had a certain tremor no matter how many times I dialed my daughter's number. "Dad?" Olivia answered, her voice too bright for her own good. "Was your Father's Day good? Anything special?" "Your afternoon was pretty strange," I said. "Do you know anything about a gift?" "I don't know." The reply came out of nowhere, too quickly. Before I could catch my breath, Brandon's soft laugh drifted through the background. Not a surprised, shocked laugh, but the snort of someone who saw the plan had worked. "Nothing," I said. "Tell you later." I hung up before I could hear anything else that might aggravate the wound. Something stirred inside me. Not a boiling rage. It was a gentle, slow, but firm boundary. It felt like an interior door had to be closed, not to keep anyone out, but to keep the rest out of the draft. I, a retired electrical engineer, went into my office before dinner. The room was tidy. Files, folders, the gold desk lamp, the sundial Linda had bought at the craft market. The screen lit up, the bank interface clearly outlined. I took a deep breath, my hands on the keyboard. Olivia's secondary card, delete. Recurring transfer, cancel. PIN, change. To wedding date 36 years ago. Checking the rescue, $4,500 last month. A record like a cold mirror. Each click of confirm was like removing a rope that had been wrapped around my chest. I didn't hate my child. I just stopped playing the role of a life preserver that people used to throw away when they saw a ripple. A life preserver, if thrown carelessly, would one day sink the person who threw it. Linda didn't come into the room, but I knew she stood in the doorway for a moment and then left. She trusted me the way a longtime partner does. No questions, no prompting, no intervention, just a warm cup of tea nearby. A touch of trust can sometimes save 100 words. The next morning, 8:22, the phone rang. I knew the time, by habit of many years. What did you do? My card was declined, my car insurance was reversed, the rent, everything was wrong. I took a sip of coffee. I sent you a snake. On the other end of the line, silence, then a sigh. Then the familiar three-step sequence. Denial. You're lying. Deflection. You're setting me up. Threats. You're not going to see Lily and Max anymore. Those lines, I said, expired yesterday. It was just a little joke. Using living creatures to scare your elderly parents is never little, Olivia. I'm not punishing you. I'm setting boundaries. I spoke slowly, like pouring water, afraid to spill. I didn't need to win the argument. I needed to free the whole family from the mud again. About 5 days after the old argument, the BMW stopped abruptly in front of the gate. Olivia and Brandon rang the bell repeatedly. Linda wanted to come out with me. I nodded. We had promised each other not to leave the other alone in the storm. You owe us, Olivia pointed out. You live on a pile of money while we struggle. I don't use money to threaten anyone, I replied. I use the law to protect our home. Brandon leaned in close. His words like a stone in a sewer. Do you think locking up the money is the end of it? I advise you not to say more. I looked straight at him. From now on, all threats are on file. I saw Olivia's eyes shake a beat, like someone seeing a door that they thought was always open-closing for the first time. She was angry. She turned her head. She said a cold sentence. You will regret it. The car started. The sound of the rear tires scraping against the edge of the road seemed to leave a mark. That afternoon, I met Eleanor Whitaker, our family lawyer of 15 years. Her expression changed from calm to serious when she heard 12 breathing holes. When she heard Reptile Haven, $132.40, her gaze darkened, and when I mentioned Brandon's soft chuckle on the phone, she put down her pen and paused. We work on 4 levels, Eleanor said. Safety, legal, financial, compassion. On the safety level, document all communications. Instruct us not to open the door without an appointment. Change the locks. I'm a pragmatist. I do that right away. Install a doorbell camera. On the legal level, a no-knock order so that every unwelcome visit, every threat is no longer a family matter, but a matter for law enforcement. She reads each line slowly, explaining the phrases, no harassment, no direct contact, no approaching within X meters. On the financial level, amend the will. She proposes setting up an independent education fund for Lily, 9, and Max, 7, with independent trustees, paying directly for the school and education-related services without going through the parents. A mechanism with a lock, a cover, a control address, exactly like the way I learned to design circuits. There must be a fuse, a filter, a relay to cut off the circuit when overloaded. At the level of compassion, Eleanor whispered, "The boundary is not a closed wall. It is a fence with a gate. The key is not in the hands of others. The key is in your own sanity." 2 days later, at exactly 14:27, Eleanor called. "The papers have been served." I sat still and said nothing. Inside the house, Linda was drying some mint leaves. She put her hand on my shoulder, a touch that held me. We went out to the porch. The sunlight shattered on the edge of the rosemary pot, creating bright spots like grains of rice. I suddenly felt moved, not because of victory, but because an order had just been restored. From now on, what belongs to the mechanism will be given to the mechanism. What belongs to the human heart, we will keep it by not burning it. The following days smelled normal. In the morning, I made fried eggs. Linda replanted the pot of chrysanthemums that had been broken by the strong wind. I watered the water and wrote a few lines in a hardcover black notebook. No urgent messages today. No doorbell ringing. No arguments. Lunch was a cold sandwich and mint tea. Normality is a bonus. At night, I opened an old drawer. In it was a car receipt from Olivia when she was 17. I remember her face shining brightly, running around the yard, her arms around my neck, vowing to take care of us when we are old. That promise fell from the child's mouth and fell from the adult's life. I don't blame the promise. I just learned not to tie my life to those promises anymore. I sat down at the table, took a blank piece of paper, and wrote a letter I would not send to Lily and Max 10 years from now. He set up an education fund for you two. He wanted the money to be a path, not a bar. If one day your mother finds herself again, forgive her. Forgiveness is bread for those who travel long distances. If one day she strays further, protect yourself. Protection is not selfishness, but respect for what God has placed in you two. If you ever get angry with him, know that anger is also a way of loving and standing up. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer with Olivia's old stick drawings. 4 people holding hands under a full sun. I didn't throw them away. If love was ever true, it was worth keeping as evidence, even if it wasn't valid today. One afternoon, the postman slipped a small envelope under the door. Neatly printed on the outside, Lily. My hand trembled as I tore the edge. A crayon drawing appeared. 3 people. Mom, Lily, Max. A red roof, a blue sky, and a heart smeared across the sky. Below was a slanted handwriting. "You're a good boy." I handed it to Linda. She pressed her palm to the drawing as if to her hot forehead. I said, "We can't have direct contact, but I can send seeds." We picked sunflowers for Lily, climbing beans for Max. I wrote, "Water every morning, Watch every afternoon. When the first flower blooms, have an adult write to tell him. Waiting is a way of loving. Eleanor helped pass the gift across the legal route. She wrote, "Good job, Tom. The boundary doesn't close all roads. It keeps the road on track. As the sky darkens, I walk along the fence. The earthy smell is like a lullaby. Somewhere, Olivia must be lying staring at the ceiling, angry, tired, afraid, then sighing. I don't know where her bottom is. Everyone has their own bottom. But when that day comes, when she hits bottom and pushes herself up, the gate will open. Open for the children to pass by and see the sunflower patch. I'll stand far enough away to not feed old habits, close enough so my heart doesn't grow cold. Someone says, every story needs an ending. But life isn't always a straight line with a dot. Life is like a song with a long melody that disappears into the air. Our end today was simply the small kitchen. Linda chopped shallots. I washed the green onions. Her hands were slender, wrinkled like a map of the times she wiped my tears and her own. "Do you regret it?" Linda asked. The question was wrapped in velvet, but the needle was real. "Yes," I said. Not for setting boundaries, but for not setting them sooner. For letting small evils become floods. For turning the rescues into weak dikes, patching one place and breaking another. Linda put her hand on my back. We did the best we knew then. The rest, leave time and the child. That night, the moon was like a silk scarf, sprinkling silver powder on the canopy. I stood on the porch, inhaling the wind. The city was not quite asleep, but the house was. I thought of Eleanor with her layers of protection, of Officer Carter Miles with his gloves, of Noah gently holding the snake, of Lily, Max probably flipping through her exercise book, of Olivia, my daughter, who had gone on a very long detour, and I wish she would come back. Not back to my house, but back to her own house, where conscience had planted a flag. The next morning, I wrote another letter to Tom Hale from more than 40 years ago. Will, no, young Tom. Don't try to compensate with material things for missed dinners. A long hug saves more than an expensive car. Teach your child to accept rejection. Teach your child to bargain. Teach your child to wait. And remember, money is a language. If you are silent, it will speak for you. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer with the other papers. Unsent letters often heal better than sent ones. 2 weeks passed. Normalcy became a rhythm. Linda and I walked in the park. I saw a young father tying his child's shoelaces. He sat down, his hand patiently guiding the string through, pulling it back, tightening it. I wanted to go and put my hand on his shoulder and say, patience today will save months and years. But then I kept quiet. Every house has a door. Every heart has its own lock. One afternoon, the phone rang. An unfamiliar number sent a photo. 2 young plants in plastic pots. Beneath the photo was the caption, "I water them every morning. They've grown 2 joints." No signature. But I knew. Lily. I smiled, handing the phone to Linda. She touched the screen lightly, as if afraid to drop the tiny sprout. That night, there was another message, this time from Olivia. Dad, you'll be lonely if you do this. People need family when they're old. I read it, but didn't reply. Not because I didn't need family, but because I needed real family, not hostages, not contracts. I took a screenshot, saved it to my file as Eleanor had instructed. Then I turned off the lights, washed my hands, sat at the table, and held a spoonful of steaming chicken soup. The smell of celery, the smell of rice, the warmth of the kitchen. Linda made a casual remark about the vegetable garden. I talked about the widowed neighbor who had just planted succulents. We laughed. The laughter wasn't of victory, but of relief. One drizzly morning, Officer Miles stopped by, checking in, updating us. He talked about other families who had also weathered minor storms. The important thing, he said, is that everyone finds their place, so the storm can pass through, not enter. I took his hand. There are handshakes that make people trust kind strangers. That same morning, Noah Park emailed. The corn snake was healthy, had been taken in by the rescue station, and might be adopted by a family who knew how to care for it. I read the news, exhaling as if I had just paid a debt no one asked me to pay. A debt of kindness to a creature caught in a war that wasn't its own. Another afternoon, Eleanor invited me to a small discussion on boundaries for a group of elderly parents. I told the story of the box with 12 breathing holes, the curiosity of the finger that wanted to peel off the tape, the fear of the elderly when they heard the hissing sound, the journey from the 8:22 phone call to the 14:27 delivery of the papers. I didn't tell it to be praised. I told it so that the other grandparents would see a door they could close without having to apologize. An old woman stood up, her eyes tearing up. I'm afraid my child will hate me. I said, you can't keep yourself from sinking and be a life preserver for others forever. Sometimes letting your child swim is the only way for him to learn to breathe. The old woman nodded, her hands shaking like leaves. I wanted to hug her, but I could only smile. The smile of someone who has walked a narrow path and wants the next person to not stumble. The following evenings, I sat down to write regularly. I wrote about the things I didn't do, not saying no at the right time, not letting Olivia experience small consequences when she was young, only to grow up knowing big consequences. I wrote to young Tom, don't be afraid of anger. Anger is a normal reaction to limits. Let her be angry in safety. One day, she will thank you for having something to hold her back. I gradually understood that sacrifice without wisdom will become fuel for corrosive things. Sacrificing in the right place can nurture love. Sacrificing in the wrong place will burn both the sacrificer and the recipient. I bought a new watering can for Lily, Max. I practiced in my head the next time they came to visit. When it was legal, I would show them how to scoop up soil, hold roots, and block the wind for the little plant, how to fertilize, how to prune leaves. I would tell the story of a sprout that had a hard shell, cracked the soil, and looked up to the sky just because the light above was warm. Children believe stories like that more than lectures. I will not preach. Another morning, Linda took out a tiny old mint green sweater from the closet. It was hers when she was 2, she said, her eyes streaked with moisture. I touched the soft fabric. I was no longer angry. I felt pity. Pity for the child inside Olivia, trapped in an adult body who had not yet learned the lesson of waiting before being handed a supplementary card, had not yet finished the lesson of managing desires before being rushed to the emergency room. Every lesson returned late is expensive. That night, I sat with Linda, clinking teacups. I said, I don't think we failed. We were just late with some lessons, but better late than never. Linda nodded, smiling very slightly. And when you do, remember to stay. Don't cross the line again. We promised. Father's Day that year had no reunion. It had a box and a "don't open" that saved me from reopening a whole series of old days. It has a rescued snake, an innocent creature. It has dry but warm legal documents because they shelter the house from the wind. It has a small garden that has begun to sprout, along with a part of the heart that has stopped wanting to break itself to make a bridge for others to walk forever. If you ask why the story is so long, I will say, because the human heart is not a straight line measured by a ruler. It is a circle of curiosity when we step to the box, emotion when we remember the little hands, and emotion when we dare to do difficult but kind things. I have come full circle, not to close, but to continue. Tomorrow morning, I will water 2 pots, Lily's sunflowers, Max's climbing beans. I will measure with my old eyes how many inches taller today. I will wait for a childish letter about the first flower to bloom. When that letter arrives, I will put it next to Olivia's old stick drawings. In a house that already has a fence and a gate, there they will lie. Evidence of what was once true, reminders of what is true, and invitations of what might be true another day. That's how I put a full stop to today's story, not the end. Because love, once learned, is not over. It's enough to live on, to sow on, to wait on, so that if one day Olivia stands outside the gate with Lily, Max, we can say, come in, look at the sunflowers first. As for the rest, let the sun tell. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts on this story in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left.